So have a great day, everyone. So this morning, this session will be all about the selection and organization of content. So by this, we will be able to give an idea and skills in the selection and organization of content. We are having a discussion on selection of content in our curriculum. So it really involves the curriculum design. So how our contents of a certain subjects are being chosen and selected. How are this content are organized, and arranged according to the different skills that will be suited to our learners. So for this session, we will be having talks about curriculum design, which also be part of the selection and organization of content that will also be part of the principles of teaching and learning. So for all uh, let takers, this will be also a great help for everyone, for future teachers or for those who would like to plan, to teach in the in and would like also to be part of the teaching field. These are the things that you need to consider when you select the content that you're going to deliver in your different learners. So before we plan the lesson, of course, another thing that we need to consider is the selection and the organization of content. We have that one also in the discussion of the loss or the principles or the loss of learning that uh, the law of readiness. This is connected and interrelated to the law of readiness. No, we cannot skip, we cannot proceed to a certain topic which is not yet ready for our learners. So as a teacher, we are also a curriculum designer. So we will organize how content are being arranged, how these contents are interrelated that could be integrated in our lesson. So we need to consider our learners, of the readiness of a certain skills or competencies that will be taught to them. So as a teacher, this could be our guiding principles on how to choose and how to arrange or organize the content. No? Because when you will have to take the board exam for professional teachers, licensed professional teacher of the board exam for license or examination for teachers, this will be also found in that content, like in the professional education, like in the teaching principles and also part of the curriculum development. This will be part of those topic, the professional education, and always in the part of that exam, so for our let takers there, so the part of the exam that always been included on the exam of the license or examination for teachers will always be a situational, analytical, and of course it involves logic, examples and situations, situations are there, and the choices of your answer are almost similar, so you need to choose the best answer for that question, so you need to be critical. There are different techniques on how to answer a multiple choice questions, because in the board exam it is a multiple choice question. So let's get started about our topic for this session. It is all about the selection and organization of our content, of a certain subject area or learning areas. So what is this all about, the selection and organization of content in the curriculum design? So we have here different notions and ideas on the principles on how these topics or organization of content are being chosen by the curriculum designer, the national government, especially in the K to 12 curriculum, in the basic education curriculum. So curriculum design is deciding about the shape of the curriculum plan. So it is the same with other planning, so when you are an engineer, you need to have your blueprint. It is your plan And that plan will serve as your guide in making or in constructing a certain infrastructure. So when it comes to teaching, there is a need for you to plan also on how are we going to select and organize the curriculum content. No? It involves selection of content in line with the goals and objectives of a certain institution or the objectives and goals of the curriculum. No? So we now have the K to 12 curriculum. So what is the goal of the K to 12 curriculum? So we would like to inform that the K to 12 curriculum wants to develop our learners to become a 21st century learners. No, a life skill. The skills should be they should have the life skills. No, to become a problem solver, a critical thinker. No, so when we select content in our subject matter, when we select and organize the different content or arrange it according to its curriculum, we need to consider of the objectives and goals of a certain curriculum, the K-12 program. So the selected content will have to be arranged, informed with help the teacher in choosing and organizing an appropriate learning experience for the classroom. So we are talking about here appropriate learning experiences that we want in the class, in a virtual classroom or in a physical classroom. So it is a very vital role of a certain teacher, no, in selecting, choosing, or organizing the learning experiences that will occur, that will happen in a certain classroom or in a certain virtual classroom. Although we are now in the distance learning, in the online class, so we are going to choose appropriately the learning experiences that we want our learners to experience. No? So in this case, the focus of the curriculum design is based on the selection and organization of content. No? When we talk about content here, please be reminded that the content is all about the subject matter, no? For the learners and the learning activities. So the subject matter, the purpose of having the subject matter, it is not because this is for the teacher to teach, but the subject matter is focused for the learners, for them to learn a certain skills, a certain competency. So what are these learning experiences? So we have two keywords here when it comes to content, no? In the curriculum. First, the subject matter. That's what we always associate the content, the subject matter, which is for the learners and it's not for the teachers. The concern for that is not the teacher on what to teach, but for the learners on what they are going to learn. And the second term is very important, the learning experiences. So what are those learning experiences? Or what are examples? Of course, these are activities in the class, no, that will uh, be given or delivered to our learners. Obviously, the selection of content and learning experiences will be based on sound, different guiding principles. There are criteria and guiding principles for the selection of the subject matter or the content in the curriculum. So we will be giving you the slides. No? So just give me just a few moments for me to share my slide. So we are now preparing the different guiding principles of this selection and organization of uh, content. When we talk about content, this is all about subject matter, the things that we are going to teach and the things that our students wants to learn and that we want them to learn. So for this time, we have different principles, guiding principles that will help us future teachers. No, when we take the board exam, these are the things that we need to consider. No, when there are some questions related to the principles on selection and organization of the content, or the principles that will help us in choosing the subject matter that we are going to deliver in the class. So here are the different guiding principles in the selection and organization of content. Guiding principle related to subject matter content is to observe the following qualities in the selection and organization of content. Therefore, when we choose the subject matter that we are going to teach to our learners, there are qualities, there are criteria. So, number one criteria that we should consider as a teacher now in the class when we choose or select, organize a certain content or subject matter in our learning area, number one is validity. Validity of the content. Now, it is related in the law of learning, which is the law of readiness. Now, we could not teach this certain skill to our learners whom our learners are not yet ready, are not that their skills before that are lacking. So therefore, we need to choose proper content, organize proper content to deliver to our learners. So number one is validity. I repeat, validity. What does it mean? This means that teaching the content that we ought to teach according to the national standards explicit in the K to 12 basic education curriculum. So as teachers, our Bible, no, these are some misconception of teachers when they are going to teach. No, they just go to the classroom and teach what they have prepared, or in the worst case scenario, they have not prepared and they just go to the whiteboard or blackboard, then get the pen or the marker, then write everything, and then have the direct instruction. We are ought to follow the national standards. This is our Bible as a future teacher, the K to 12 basic education curriculum, no? Or also called the Republic Act number 10533, 10533, no? Or what we call the Enhanced Basic Education Curriculum. This also means teaching the content in order to realize the goal and objectives of the course. So prior to teaching a certain subject area, you need to consider also what is the objective and goal of a certain subject that you are going to teach. For example, you are teaching Mathematics 1, grade 1, or Mathematics grade 7. So, of course, there are what we call standards, no? The performance standards, the content standards that is already given in the curriculum guide. So now our Bible as teacher, no, is our curriculum guide, or the CG. There you can see the national guidelines, the national standards like the performance standard and the content standard. And there you can see the objectives of a certain subject, of the certain learning area. For example, I told you that if you are teaching grade 7 mathematics, there are content standards that will guide you on what are the skills that we want to develop, what are the competencies that we want to develop to our learners. Now we have the MELC. It is an acronym, of the learning competencies. No? So what is MELC, by the way? So sana, most essential learning competencies. Because of the pandemic, no, there are thousands of competencies in a certain subject. Hundreds or thousands of learning competencies, no, in a grade level. So hundreds in a certain subject area. So because of the limited time that we have, because of the online class, because of the modular class, it was being consolidated, integrated. So that is why it is called the most essential learning competency. So the most essential learning competencies, there are, I think, 6,000, or I don't show with the exact number. But the purpose of the MELC will serve us as a guide in the content objectives and goal of a certain subject, no? So that will help us to lay down the basic competencies that we want to teach to our learners. So validity, are we the things that we are going to teach, are they anchored with the national standards of the K to 12 curriculum, the content standards and the performance standards? So the content standards are the subject matter, no? And the performance standards are the learning activities or the learning experiences, no, as mentioned earlier. Okay, so validity. Are we following the guidelines of the national government, especially the DepEd curriculum, the K to 12 basic education curriculum? So if we can answer that one, that's validity. That's valid. Our content are anchored or aligned, or we are following the national standard. So that's number one, validity. The second principle in choosing or selecting the content in the subject area is significance. So from the word itself, how significant is the content that we are going to choose for us to deliver this to our learners? So what we teach should respond to the needs and interests of the learners. Sometimes we are blindfolded of this idea, no, that everything that we teach, no, with different scope are always considered as learning. Yes, no, that could be, but there should be a response to the needs of our learners. So, what is the most needed skills that we want to develop to our learners as of today? Now, we want them to develop a life skills. What is that life skills? That is part of the 21st century. No, we have the four C's or the seven C's, but to generalize that different skills that being offered in the 21st century that we want our learners to have is to have a life skills. No, an application of all learning in our real battle of life. The real battle of learning is in outside the classroom, outside the physical classroom, outside the online classroom. No? Because the real battle of life is the reality, no, the application of it, no, uh, these life skills, no, these problem solving skills that we need to develop to our learners. Hence, meaningful and significant. Kanang mga needs, all needs and interests of our learners are all meaningful and significant. The third one is balance. What is this? Balance. Balance means content include does not only facts but also concepts and values. So when we teach, not only to develop the knowledge, the cognitive, no, there are three guiding objectives. No, when we make a lesson, I think we have the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude, or the key SA, or the cognitive, the psychomotor, and the affective. So it should be balanced. No, not only the facts, the knowledge that we need to deliver to our learners, but we need also to develop concepts and values. The use of the three-level approach, the balanced cognitive, psychomotor, and affective lesson content. No? If you would like to become a teacher, so these are the three important approaches in order to deliver your lesson. No? The psychomotor, the cognitive, and affective. When you talk about cognitive, that is the knowledge. When we talk about psychomotor, that could be a skill or a skills, the skills, and affective, that is values formation, no? That really affects our attitude, behavior, and whatsoever related to that. So we are done with the balance. So number four is balanced content. No, a balanced content is something that is not too easy to bore the above average students. No, neither not too difficult to turn off the average. So that's so difficult. No, that is a difficult task of a teacher when you are in the heterogeneous class. No, what do you mean by heterogeneous? So these are composed of different learning abilities of our learners in the class. Now there are fast learners, average learners. There are also slow learners. So the diversity of learners that we have in the class. So as teacher, we need to consider the balanced content. No? So that for those who are in above average, they will not also get bored. No? And of course, for those who are average and below average, they should not find it too difficult for them to answer or to grasp a certain information or process. It is something that challenges the student, no? To observe the principle of balance, no topic must be extensively discussed at the expense of other topics. So, meaning, do not take this as give some priority or more intense discussion to this topic because you think that this is more important than to the other one. So as teacher, we need to consider that all topics are must be discussed with the same balance, no? Discussed at the expense of other topics. It should not be this topic should be discussed thoroughly, and the other one should be discussed not that enough. No, so we need to balance the content. The another principle is self sufficiency. Sufficiency. So what is this self sufficiency? Content fully covers the essentials. So sufficient or enough. Learning content is not mile wide, an inch deep. So this is very important principle. No? Mile wide, an inch depth. Dapat hindi masyadong marami pero kakaunti lamang ang kalidad na natutunan ng mag-aral. We need to say, we have covered a lot of topics and competency, but the quality of learning that they had is not that good because we are after of the time that we need to finish because there are topics being not being discussed that we need uh, to look into. No, we need to finish because we are behind with other section. No? It is better to have a topic that been discussed with small or not that wide scope of topics or content that being discussed as long as there is quality of learning. No, that is why we need not to practice the mile wide and inch depth. No, in our vernacular, no, when I say mile wide, napaka mile wide. Maraming natapos sa topic. Naubos natin ang topic sa isang linggo, no? Sa isang grading period, we were able to finish that one in an early time. But because of that, we also compromise the quality of learning of our students. So that is inch deep. No, there is not that quality that we could offer to our learners. So the essentials are sufficiently covered and rare and are treated in depth. In this case, of less is more. No, there are two statement here. No, the mile wide and inch deep. Less is more. Why? Because if there is less content and there is more quality that is being given because the topic, the discussion, the learning experiences that our learners experience is sufficient enough for them. Okay? The next one is interest. So as a teacher, we need to consider the interest of our learners. What makes them interested? What lessons or strategies that we are going to use, what learning experiences or the activities that we could offer to our learners for them to be interested. No? Teachers should consider the interests of our learners, their developmental stages, and cultural and ethnical background. So when I say developmental stages, so we need to consider the age level, no, the growth development of a certain age. No, there are some theory on that about the human growth and development. So if our students, our learners are at this age, of course they have different interests. When we have this kind of students ages from 15 to 17, of course they have different interests. When our students are 5 to 8 years old, they also have different interests. So we need to consider the type of learner that we have in the class. And of course, we also consider the cultural and ethnical background of the students or the learners that we had. No, of course, for example, these are composed of indigenous people with an inclusivity. No, we really promote inclusivity in the class. No, so if you have indigenous people or member of the indigenous people, we also consider their interests. No, so when our learners are diverse in a certain setting, of course, we need to address their interests. The next one is utility. What is utility? Will this content be of use to the learners? It is not meant only to be not only to be memorized for test and grade purposes. So when they say utility is the usage of their learning, not because no, we give them an assessment or a quiz, not because for us to tell them that they learn, not that because when they got a good grade and memorize all the principles, all the concept, they are learning. But what is utility all about? It's the application of the learning that they had. No? So how they are going to utilize the learning, the concept, the knowledge, the wisdom, and all things that we need them to develop or learn. No? So what is learned has a function even after examinations are over. So we should not be limited, and we should not always consider lang the result of the examination. It's all about the application of learning after the examination, after we assess. That is why there are some questions why we are assessing our learners, why we are testing them, why we give quiz. Is that because we would like someone or is that because we would like to get a grade for us to compute and to declare an honor students and deserving students? Now we are assessing them for us to give them feedback of the learning, and of course to look into the different loopholes of the teaching and learning processes. No? Of course, this will also give us the idea of the things that they have learned, and of course those things that we don't that they have not learned that much. Okay, so the utility, what's the purpose of the content that they have learned? The next one is feasibility, no? Feasibility, or how feasible, no? How viable, feasible, the content. The content is feasible in the sense that the essential content can be covered in amount of time. So there are different content or topic or subject matter in a certain subject or learning area that would really need enough time for our students to learn, enough time for them to grasp the competencies, the skills. So as teacher, we need also to consider that this certain competency or content must be given enough time and not rush into because we are out of time. No, we need to proceed to the next content because we are running out of time. That should not be our principle as teacher. Our principle as teacher that we make every content feasible with enough time given to that. A guaranteed and viable curriculum is the first in the school-related factors because there are some related factors that could affect the viability of a certain content. No, there are some external factors why we could not finish a certain content, which why we could not grasp and why we could not give them all the content or all the goals and objectives of this learning area. That is because of different factors, probably because of the learning abilities, the different learning styles, the external factors could be part of that. Yeah. So that has the greatest impact on student achievement. So I think we need to recall so that we could still remember all of those. So one of the guiding principles are the following. We have the first one is validity. Second is significance. Third is balance, balanced content, self-sufficiency, interest, utility, and of course, feasibility. So now let us teach the content that is aligned with our goals and objectives of the basic education curriculum. So we will always go back to the curriculum guide or the K-12 national standards. And we need to respond to the needs of the learner. To sum up, no? This is the summary or synopsis of the different guiding principles. So how are we going to teach the content? So align, make it valid, align the following content to the goals and objectives in our basic education curriculum. Number two, response to the needs of the learner. We all know that our main consideration is the needs and interests of our learners. The third one, it should have include the cognitive skill, the affective elements, and of course the psychomotor. Fully and deeply cover the essential to avoid mile wide and inch depth impression. Another thing, that is of use to the learners. Meaning, is it useful? What's the purpose of the learning of that content? Is that timely and relevant? That learning that it could have could be used in their real life, no? That could help us, that could help them to develop their life skills. That life skill is the most important skill, I think, for this time. No, we need to become a problem solver. We need to develop as students to become a problem solver. Not only I'm referring to a mathematical problems, but it is a life problem. How to respond to different problems, hardships, struggles in life with the application of learning that they have in the class. The another thing is it must be viable and feasible. Number two, at the base of the structure of cognitive subject matter content are facts. We can do away with facts, meaning to say we cannot do away from facts. Now, although that is a narrow and a shallow learning, no, we cannot give them understanding, developing their critical thinking, their creative thinking, if we could not give them first the facts. No? So we need first to develop knowledge and facts to our learners in order for them to internalize and use that facts as a foundation of interpretation, understanding, analyzing, comprehension at the higher level of learning. So we will always start with the facts and knowledge because you cannot process, you could not have that understanding, high level of learning like application of learning, understanding, internalization of all the learnings if we will not start with the facts. So facts construction is important also. An increasingly richer and more sophisticated knowledge, no? When a person is very knowledgeable, no? When he is full of trivia, knowledge, basic information, we were amazed of a certain individual of doing that. But we need more higher thinking order nga mga skills, higher order thinking skills. But we could not develop our higher order thinking skills or the hats if we were not able to get a strong foundation of facts building and facts constructing. No? When you construct good foundation of facts, no? When you develop facts and knowledge base na mga information, it will increasingly reach increasingly richer and more sophisticated knowledge base and by working out of the process of conceptual understanding. Okay? Few ways in which you can help your student. So as a teacher, these are the ways in order for you to help our learners to become more knowledgeable, more more knowledge and information. Of course, number one, providing opportunities for experimentation. This is very common. No? So we expose our learners to the process of experimentation, not only in science, because we have that idea that experimentation will always happen in sciences, no? But in all subjects, there are experimentation. We need to develop their curiosity level. We need to develop our learners to become more inquisitive, no? Socially, no? Become inquisitive socially, and all, no? Behaviorally, psychologically, and all of aspects in life. We need to become more inquisitive and more experimentation, more exposure of this activity or learning experiences. Another thing, presenting the ideas of others. So when we teach, we do not only focus on our subject area. Now, when you are teaching science, do not only focus on science area, learning areas. You need also to present other areas, other ideas that could be integrated in your content. No, that's what we call an integration of learning. While it is beneficial for you to encourage your students to discover principles themselves, it will not jeopardize your students or learners if you present other ideas, no, who work hard over the years to explain phenomena. So, by the way, it's not about the integration there. Meaning to say, your learners, no, presenting other ideas. So, we need also to accept ideas of our learners and other individual in the class. Next, emphasizing conceptual understanding. So it is a higher form of learning. It's not just a mere acquisition of knowledge or information. It is all about emphasizing conceptual understanding. No? The emphasis goes beyond facts. It's not only about learning, acquiring a certain knowledge, information, but we need to process that facts. But prior to that, we could not develop conceptual understanding to our learners if we will not expose them to facts and knowledge and information. But we need to go beyond the facts that we ought to teach our learners. We need to develop their conceptual understanding by processing the facts that we introduce to them, the concepts and values in meaningful manner. So here are some specific strategies that will help our learners to develop their conceptual understanding. This is one of the problem of our learners as of today. Like you as a student, I think this is one of the most important thing that we need to develop, as a learner, as a future teacher, the conceptual understanding. It is beyond and beyond the facts or knowledge, because we make a concept and an understanding of a certain learning content through the learning activities, or what we call learning experiences. So here are some strategies. Number one, organize units around a few core ideas and themes. Explore each topic in depth. Of course, you go deeper so that it will help you develop your cognitive, not only on the level of knowledge, but into the analysis, creative thinking, critical thinking, experimentation, and higher order thinking skills. Go deeper, not just a very shallow information. No, you should not be contented on that information. Your brain should help you to process things not only after getting a facts, but you need to process that facts in order for you to make a conceptual understanding in your mind. You go beyond facts. Third, explain how new ideas relate to students' own experiences. No, why we need to get onto that point that our learners should always give their experience in a certain content, because when it is a personal experience of our students, when we integrate the content to the personal experience of the learners, this will help them to analyze, this will help them understand things, a certain content. So it is very important as teacher to integrate in our lesson the learning experience of our learners, and that will make them a new ideas and things they have previously learned. No, that is why we need to encourage our learners to share their experiences on this certain content and these certain skills, so that they could really give them their conceptual understanding of certain facts or information. Their previously learned na mga experiences or skills could be applied and could be used in the new ideas. Of course, next, show students. No. Next is ask students to teach others what they have learned. So this is very important. I hope that you have this idea in mind, that when you learn something, you need that to teach to others. No? So when you learn something and you teach that and share to others, that will make your learning more longer. No? It will always be part of your experiences and to teach. No, because you can only say that you are learning if you are already teaching the concept. No, do what we have the peer teaching. No, especially when you have your review with your classmates, you are doing teaching. No? Please be reminded and bear in mind that in learning in teaching there is learning. That's a very basic concept. Now when you teach, your learners learn, but in the other way around, it should be the learning process must be converted to a teaching process. When somebody is learning, let that somebody learn on that concept, teach or share to other one. Now that is the only way that we can say that our learners are learning, because they have teach others the way that they have learned. So even in the teaching profession, you cannot teach what you have learned. You cannot teach what you don't have learned. All the things that you teach is the things that you have learned. No? Okay. Next is promote dialogue. Very important activity. A dialogue, a conversation, a group activity, or an exchange of ideas and thoughts that a thought-provoking discussion, no? Encourage them to talk, to share their thoughts, ideas, notions, and everything so that it will promote a dialogue and it will have a conversation of an intellectual conversation that will be sharing of ideas, sharing of their experiences, and the rest. The next one is use authentic activities. This is a very challenging task of a teacher. No? Sometimes we always prefer to a simple activities like paper and pencil. That is a traditional way of giving an activities, a quiz, or whatsoever that will make our life as a teacher make easier. No? But when you introduce to your learners the authentic activities, what is this authentic activities, authentic assessment? A real life, it could be an activity excuse me, that could develop their critical thinking, their cognitive skills, the higher order thinking skills, and evolve them on the process on how to become a problem solver and a life skills learner. So by this, no, subject matter content is an integration of cognitive skill and affective elements of components. So I think before we proceed on that, no, so these are the things that we discussed now in the selection of the content and organization. So by that, I hope that you have learned something for this day. That that discussion is really all about the selection and organization of content. Now we have discussed several facts, several guiding principles. I know that your mind is already loaded with this guiding principle. No? I know that you would like to become a teacher. If you would like to become a teacher, or even in a, you will not become a teacher, those are guiding principles in order for you to learn. Now, when you take the board exam, that would really help you to internalize all the guiding principles and apply that one to a real life situation. Please be remember when you take a board exam, whatever board exam that you are taking, it's all about situational, analytical, and of course, it will conceptual na mga understanding, conceptual situations in the items of the examination. It would be a multiple choice. No? It is a multiple choice exam. So I hope that you have learned something from this day. So by next, we will be discussing another guiding principles in the teaching and learning process. So that's all for this session. So I hope that you have learned. So for this time, thank you so much for listening and watching for this video. Keep safe and God bless everyone.